Hi everybody, in this video we're going to look at data set, and the full scale measurement. So what is the data? So you can use your way to define it. And so in this class, I won't really ask you to write down what is the definition for data. But I just want you to have the clear idea about what is data, because when you go to the real world, when people say, please collect the data, please don't think, okay, data has to be numbered. So data has to be numbered. So that would be the wrong idea. So what is the data? So data are the facts and the figures collected, analyzed, and summarized for presentation and interpretation. So therefore, you have to understand data can be number, but also can be non-numeric. So for instance, when people say go outside to collect the data for the customer characteristic, to characterize the customers, how you characterize customers? You can look at the height, eye colors, hair colors, and the shoes, the brand of shoe they are wearing, etc. So obviously none of those are numbers. So they are facts. But obviously it can be figures. How tall they are and how heavy they are. So those will be figures. So the data is not just about number. It is the fact and the figures. And so when we talk about data, we usually have idea. The reason we collect the data, we are trying to use the data to help us to understand some business fact. So therefore, the data we collected, analyzed, and summarized for presentation and interpretation. So they are called the data. So what are the data set? So the data set, so all the data collected in a particular study are referred to as a data set for the study. So the data in the data set are a little bit different. So when you name a spreadsheet, the whole spreadsheet, the data as data set is because is when you are using that data for a specific study. So you already have your goal of your study, so that data becomes the data set. So it becomes the data set. So I will show you the example in the next slides. And so in that slides, you not only will be able to see the data set, but also you'll be able to see several very important components you have to know when you are trying to go outside, collect data, or try to collect the data from online. So the important element are important fact are elements, variable, and observations. So let me look at this chart first. So in this table, usually what you're going to see on Excel files, so you will have a row and a column. The first row and first column are usually, especially the first row, usually will be labeled. So for instance, in this case, we'll look at different companies, and so we are looking at the company's stocks, whether they're on what kind of stock exchange they're on, and what is the annual sale, what is earning per share. So here is a normal data representation we'll see. So first, let's focus on the first column. So first column, we have company, right? So Dataram, Energy South, Keystone, Landcare, etc. So those are the company. So those are company we are studying. So that each company will consider as an element. So each company will consider as an element. And so all the data we collected is based on each element. So for a company, Dataram and yourself, so they have so many different kind of characteristics, like employees, they have the year they established, etc. However, for a study, remember the data set is a data we collect for a study, right? When you work on the study or marketing research or business research, you always have interest characteristic you want to know. So for instance, here for each company, we care about what kind of stock exchange they're on, the annual sale, and earning per share. So those three items, so the three category list in the first row, stock exchange, annual sale, and earning per share. So we're using those to characterize each element. So each element has so many characteristics. We only care the three: stock exchange, annual sale, share per share, earn per share. So those characteristics is called the variables. So which means we're using the variables to characterize the element. So we're using variables to characterize the element. And then so after you identify the element and the variables, and then you go to the real world or you go online to find those data. So those data is called observation. So you put all the observation together, so that will become our data set. It is very important when you start. This is the first step you have to do when you do any statistical analysis, business statistical analysis, etc. You have to clearly understand what is your element, what are the variables, and then you can start to collect your data. So I want to give you another example to help you better apply what we learned here. So think about, you try to understand what will affect students' GPA. So what will affect students' GPA? So that is your study, right? So now, if you try to do this study, what will be your element and what will be the variables? Give you a few minutes, think about it. So, okay, so I think some students might got it. So in order to answer the question for this study, so you try to think, okay, what will affect students' GPA? So what will affect student GPA? So then what you're gonna do is you're gonna survey, let's say, 50 college student, 50 college students, and then you're gonna ask them, what is your GPA, right? So that is one of the, and also you're thinking, what can affect GPA? Okay, maybe which year you are in, your class standing maybe affect your GPA, and maybe your high school GPA might affect your college GPA. So you might think about, okay, to be in high school, and you are might thinking, okay, if I take too many classes, it might overburn my energy, so it might also affect my GPA, right? So maybe how many credit you are taking now. So now you identify those so many different things. So how can we identify which is my element, which are my variables? So remember, so the element is the individual we try to obtain the information. So if you think about when you ask those 50 college students, so each student will become my one element because all the information is from that independent student. So Anna, we got data from Anna, we got data from John, we got data from Tim. So those are your elements. So each student is your element. So the student's name will be the element's name. And then how about your variables? So remember, the variable are the categories you use to characterize your element. So as I said, you're asking student their GPA, about their the class standing, about the high school GPA, and about the credits they are taking now. So those will be your variables. So therefore, in this case, you're gonna be able to create this similar table as well. The first column will be the name of the student, John, Anna, Tim, etc. And your row labels. So the row label instead of stock, annual sale, earning per share, now it will become the GPA and the credit hours they are taking, the class standing, and their high school GPA. And then you're going to collect the data, fill in the table with the data. So then you create your data set. So like I said, all your business statistical research or study, marketing research, or starting from this table, So it's very, very important that you can correctly identify your element, variables, and then you can further to collect the data and get your data set. So this is about the foundation about this class. So make sure you have a clear idea about those important components. So next, we're going to look at the 4 scales of measurement. So I'm sure if you take Stats 260, your professor must spend a lot of time to talk about it. And here we're gonna just refresh your memory. And plus, I want to give you further example. And also your quiz due this weekend will relate to the implication of this 4 scale measurement. And similarly, as I mentioned before, I don't want you to memorize the definition. Our class is focused on the application of the statistical concept. Therefore, try to understand it instead of memorize what are the 4 scale measurements. First, I want to talk about nominal, not nominal. So the 4 scale measurement are nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. So in the statistics class, your professor also obviously mentioned that the scale determines the amount of information contained in the data. So how can we interpret it? So I'm going to use my pen a little bit. So I want you to label it too. When you talk about 4 scale of the measurement, we actually had order. So the first one is nominal, and the second one is ordinal, the third one is interval, the fourth one is ratio. Why I have this order, I will explain pretty soon. So for nominal, when you look at nominal, I want you to connect this in with the word called the name. Name. Select a name. So when you're thinking a data can be used, should use a nominal scale measurement to measure that data, It is when you think this data, when we look at this data, we only want to know the name of each attribute. We only want to know the name of each attribute. Other information we don't care. So other information we don't care, and then you should choose nominal scale of the measurement to measure that. So I want to give you a few examples. So first of all, think about eye colors. Eye color. You have brown, black, yellow, a blue, green, right? So when you look at the data you're collecting for eye colors, the only thing you care is the color itself. You don't try to order it. You only care about uh, the the name of the attribute. So in that situation, to measure the color of the eyes, you should use nominal scale of measurement to measure it. Remember, you only care about the name of the attribute, and then you will use nominal scale of measurement. And remember my example because, as I said, the quiz due this weekend will relate to this part. And so make sure you understand how to apply this concept to identify which variable should use which scale measurement to measure it. So this is nominal. So now we look at ordinal. So when you look at ordinal, I want you to connect ORD with the word order. Order, okay? And so why this is going to be the second scale measurement, why this order is important. So the ordinal scale of the measurement is based on the nominal scale measurement. So when you're using the ordinal scale measurement to measure a data, you are not only care about the name of each attribute, but also you care about the order of the attribute, the order of the attribute. So when you think about the eye color, you won't care about the order. There's nothing which one is better than this one. Maybe you have your own preference, but generally speaking, there is no difference. However, if you are considering use the ordinal scale measurement, you not only care about name, but also you care about the order. So for instance, class standing, class standing. First of all, each class standing has a name, right? Freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior. So 4 names for 4 attributes. But also you can order it, right? They have the order. You know that the sophomore take more credits than the freshman. The junior take more credit than the sophomore, and the senior take more credit than the junior. So you have order and you have the name for each attribute. So in this situation, that data has to use ordinal scale measurement to measure it. So this is something you have to keep in mind, which method is proper. So this is second scale measurement. So the third one is called the interval scale of the measurement. So the interval scale measurement. So for that one is developed based on the ordinal scale measurement. In another word, so if you're thinking to use the interval scale measurement to measure data, you care about the name of attribute, you care about the order of your attributes, but also the interval between 2 attributes make sense. Makes sense. So I want to give you the example. So let's think about temperature. So let's think about temperature. So when you consider the temperature 60 and 70 Fahrenheit, 60 and 70 Fahrenheit. Let's say today is 60 degree Fahrenheit, tomorrow is 70 degree Fahrenheit. So you know that tomorrow will be 10 degree hotter than today. So you can see, okay, each attribute has a name, right? 60 and the 70. And also we can order them. We know 670 is higher than the 60. And also the differences between these two attributes, 70 minus 6 equal to 10, doesn't make sense, right? 10 degree hotter. However, if you think about ordinal, let me give you an example. So let's see running competition. You got first prize and second prize. So we know it is ordinal scale measurement because each attribute has a name, first prize, second prize, and also the first prize running faster than the second prize, right? But the difference between first and the second prize is 1. Does that 1 make any sense? Does that mean the guy when the first prize is running 1 second faster than the second guy? No, it's not the case. So the differences between the two attributes doesn't make sense when you're using the ordinal scale measurement to measure it. However, if you're using the interval scale measurement to measure it, the differences between the two attributes do make business sense, do make business and make a business and economic sense. So in that situation, you're going to use interval scale measurement, like a temperature. So the last scale measurement is called a ratio. When you look at ratio scale measurement, I want you to focus on the O and always connect this O with 0. So why? Similarly as interval. So the ratio scale measurement is developed based on the interval. So which means you know the name of attribute and you care about the order of attributes, and the differences between two attributes make economic and business sense. And when you're thinking use a ratio, and also you will notice that it is including the absolute zero. I want you to think about the money in your banking account. So money in the bank account. So first, it's not nominal, it's not ordinal, it might be interval, but I want that you know the money in the bank account, that data will be used ratio scale measurement to measure it. Why? Think about if the money in your bank account equal to zero, do you have any money in your bank account? The answer is no. You have nothing in your bank account. However, if you think about temperature, when temperature, which is the example for the interval scale measurement, when the temperature is zero, do you have temperature? Of course, it's just cold, right? It doesn't mean you have temperature. So did you see the differences? So if you want to distinguish ratio from interval, you just try to understand if that absolute zero is included or not. So if the absolute zero is included, like I talked about the money in the bank account, when they equal to zero, you don't have money. So if the absolute included, that you should use the ratio scale measurement to measure that data. If the absolute zero is not included, and then you should interval scale measurement to measure it. So the more example for the ratio scale of measurement, and so for instance, like the amount of water in a jar, the amount of water in the jar. So you know if the amount of water in the jar is zero, that means no water in the jar. So that will be the ratio scale measurement. And so like I said, like that's now you understand why we say the scale determine the amount of information contained in the data, because from 1 to 4, the more and more information will be included in that scale of measurement. And the last thing I want to mention related to the scale measurement is the scale indicate the data summarization and the statistical analysis that are most appropriate. So therefore, it's very important not only just know the data, but also know the scale of the measurement. And next one, we will focus on more the classification of the data and the statistic, different kind of statistic as well.